Hey guys, so if you're watching this, you probably know that today the Christmas Sherlock special came out. It's called The Abominable Bride. I'm here to talk to you about what I think of it. This review is going to be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the new episode, just don't watch it. Just go click a new tab right here, click new tab and watch the episode. When I first heard that this is going to be set in the Victorian era, I wasn't that excited, honestly, because really the beauty of this show for me is in this modern interpretation of it and this fresh breath that's put into this very old and classic piece of literature. So when they said that they're going to be setting it back in the original time frame, I wasn't really that excited. Once actual Victorian things started, I wasn't that keen of it, really, because it really lacked for me that special, authentic Sherlock feel. It didn't have the bushy hair, the reflection of the lights and the taxi windows, but I rolled with it, and throughout the entire first section of the Victorian setting, we were introduced to these little parallels and little clues that connected this to the modern day version. I thought that was pretty good, and then the fun part started. So then we realized that this Victorian setting isn't actually like a random alternative universe that Moffat decided to do, but this is actually in Sherlock's mind, and he's using this to figure out how Moriarty survived after shooting himself in the head. So this starts making sense now, because the actual Victorian setting is Sherlock solving a case in which this bride, the Abominable Bride, shot herself in the head, but then comes back to haunt people and to kill more people. So this is starting to all tie together. And now this is getting really interesting, because we have these transitions between the modern day and the Victorian era, and they're all like switching characters from one setting, become characters from the other, and Sherlock is speaking in John's voice, and everything is just starting to just mash together. Some of my favorite things about this episode were how women were a central part of it, and women back in the Victorian days weren't a central part of the society. It's a nice kind of contrast, almost like playing with the idea that women weren't really thought of as capable and important, and how Molly had to dress herself as a man to work in her field. I like how Watson noticed that too, but Sherlock didn't. Yeah, about halfway through I really changed my mind about it. Moriarty had a really key role in this as well. One of my favorite scenes in this episode was the scene where Moriarty in the Victorian era comes to Sherlock's apartment, and he does this whole like fancy dialogue. Obviously they're like all witty and sarcastic, and then he wipes the dust off of the fireplace and licks it, and he says something along the lines of, like, did you know that dust is mostly human skin? And he licks it, and then from there it starts getting like very intimate and very creepily intimate with Sherlock. They have this like standoff where Moriarty is just being almost sexual with what he's doing, his like licking his gun and everything, and this was really, really weird, and it was unsettling in a way, just to watch these two brilliant people being so raw about their emotions almost. I don't know, I found it very unsettling. It was kind of creepy. We really see how much Sherlock thinks about him, and how Moriarty really is a virus to the hard drive of Sherlock's brain. And the scene with the waterfall, which first of all actually connects to the classic stories of Sherlock Holmes, where Moriarty dies in the Raking Back Fall. This really shows how these two people, Sherlock and Moriarty, are really so different. They're polar opposites, but are also like the same person, you know what I mean? They're these brilliant, intelligent, very creative and innovative people that just come together, but they're also torn apart, and they have this very complicated relationship that is just beautifully illustrated in this episode. Also, one of my favorite scenes is sort of a classic move they do in Sherlock, and this really brought back the authentic Sherlock feel for me, where Sherlock was in the Victorian era. He was meditating in his mind palace, and we see him as others see him, like stoic, and who knows, maybe he's sleeping, maybe he's just being lazy, but actually we see what's going on in his mind, and we have these newspaper articles floating all around him, and he's sorting through them, looking at some of them up close, and just they're all floating past him, and we just really see how on the inside he is racing through this mystery, and he really loves the thrill of it all. Also, one notable scene is the very last one, where you think it's over. They already started playing the music, but then it dwindles out, and we're back in the Victorian era, and it's Sherlock and Watson sitting in their armchairs in their apartment, and they're talking about how Sherlock is being all crazy with the future stuff, and then it pans outside of their room, and the street, the Baker Street, is modern with buses and everything, and I think this really is a call out to us as the viewers to think back and to relate this new show that actually at its core is a very old classic piece of literature, and it's such a wealth of information. It's such a rich text to work from, and I think it's sort of talking to us as viewers to tell us to think more about where this came from, and maybe even delve deeper and read some of the stories. I've read the stories, but if you haven't, you should definitely consider it, because the overall enjoyment of the show, your experience will be so much richer, just because you'll be able to see a lot more little details. Very satisfying to watch. We got a lot more insight into Mycroft and Sherlock's relationship, their brotherly love, and this scene in the airplane where Mycroft is talking about the list of drugs that Sherlock has taken, and how every time Sherlock takes drugs he has to leave that list for Mycroft there. Their relationship is still a very strong relationship, and they're not just fooling around, and Sherlock isn't just pretending to always be smarter, or Mycroft isn't pretending to be the king of the world. There are brothers, and even if Sherlock doesn't want to show it, I think he really does care for Mycroft, because Mycroft really does care for Sherlock. I think this episode is definitely going to be worth a second and maybe a third and a fourth watch, because it is so packed with Easter eggs and foreshadowing and little details. If I had to rate this out of 10, I'd give it at least an 8.8, 8.9, maybe a 9. But really one thing that was lacking for me hugely was the cinematography, and especially after the really high standards that season 3 set, I think it would be way better if they kept their old cinematographer and didn't get the new one. But it was still a good watch. I will be checking it out a few more times. Maybe I'll find something new. I'll comment down below, like you should as well. Tell me what you think. Tell me, do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Did I completely overlook something? Like, share, subscribe. Thanks.